This is Lenny Esposito with Come Reason Ministries. This week, I've been talking through a series looking at some of the objections skeptics raise against the Easter celebration. Now, although it may have seemed like my purpose was to answer the objections, actually my true goal was something a bit more ambitious. I wanted to make you, dear Christian, smarter than Google. You may think, make me smarter than Google? That's impossible. But it is possible. Now let me show you how. No one doubts that we are now a wired culture. Smartphones account for 74% of mobile phone users, according to Frank and McGid Associates. We have the internet at our fingertips no matter where we are, and that isn't always a good thing. As I heard one commentator explain, there used to be a time when, as you and your friends were, say, waiting for the movie in line, you may have had an argument over whether that obscure bomb of a film from 20 years ago had such and such a scene in it or something like that. Such conversations may lead to discussions of the merits of the scene itself or other issues, but it would always foster some kind of communication and engagement with other people. However, now when a question like this arises, someone inevitably pulls out their iPhone, does a search for the film clip or a synopsis or something and says, here's the answer. And then that's the end of the story. Usually it's the end of the conversation to that point. But Google searches are also effective at slamming down answers to points of detail that people have begun to rely on. And the search engine begins to answer, well, everything they have a question. That's where the real problem comes in. You see, when a question becomes more complex, such as, was Easter influenced by pagan sources? Simply taking the first 2 or 3 results of a Google search may not give you the correct answer. It will simply give you the most popular page. Worse, it limits your ability to critically think through the claims. By relying solely on Google, you're unplugging your brain, and that should never be the case. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't need to be an expert in history or in ancient religions to see why many times the claims made by these skeptics are, well, truly ridiculous. In fact, I've been intentionally avoiding scholar mode to look at the facts as they're presented. Let's take that article that we've been discussing this week by Heather McDougall. It ran in The Guardian and just hit a couple of glaring problems in its beginning. So here's how it starts. Easter is a pagan festival. If Easter isn't really about Jesus, then what is it about? Today, we see a secular culture celebrating the spring equinox, whilst religious culture celebrates the resurrection. However, early Christianity made a pragmatic acceptance of ancient practices, most of which we enjoy today as Easter. The general symbolic story of the death of the Son, S-O-N, when she puts S-U-N in parentheses, on a cross, another parentheses, the constellation of the Southern Cross, and his rebirth, overcoming the powers of darkness, was a well-worn story in the ancient world. There were plenty of parallel rival resurrected saviors too. Now, we've already looked at the supposed connection with the spring equinox, the fact that the resurrection accounts are told in a Jewish context, and that the history of the resurrection accounts could not have evolved over the centuries. But look at that second to last sentence that McDougall writes. The general symbolic story of the death of the S-O-N, and then she puts S-U-N in parentheses, on a cross, and another parenthetical line, the constellation of the Southern Cross. Then she finishes, and his rebirth, overcoming the powers of darkness, was a well-worn story in the ancient world. McDougall seems to miss the fact that in the ancient world, well, nobody spoke modern English. What do I mean? This play on words between son and son only works in our language. You may not know the Greek for the term of son of the Father and the sun in the sky, but if you've taken any high school Spanish, you can see that the word for son, hijo, and the word for sun in the sky, sol, are very different. They're not homonyms. They wouldn't be in the ancient languages either. That play on words only works in English. And I'm pretty sure none of the Sumerians and the Babylonians or the Romans spoke it in their day. Secondly, McDougall ties the crucifixion to the constellation of the Southern Cross. What? We know that the Romans crucified people, but trying to make such a connection, well, that's pretty tough. I mean, first of all, it's called the Southern Cross because it's only prominent in the night sky when you're positioned south of the equator. That's why Australia and New Zealand integrated into their flags. But more importantly, the idea of what shapes any of the constellations, what they make, that's not universal. Different cultures would overlay their own images on different star clusters, just as you and a friend can look at the same cloud but see very different animal shapes perhaps in it. You see, McDougall is spitting out a bunch of just so stories. And there's enough here for you to at least be doubtful of them without having to do much research at all. And that's another point. I think a skeptic bears a burden when he offers an objection. You see, now it's natural that when Christians are confronted by a friend who asks questions of them by an article like McDougall's, that they feel a bit scared. I mean, I've received many inquiries by people asking for my help on the charges of the Zeitgeist movie or the supposed rejected Gospels. And I get while it can feel overwhelming, but please remember, a lot of those objections are based on others doing their own brain unplugging. They are uncritically taking any objection to Christianity that they can Google, and they are presenting it before you can just so that you can justify your point of view. But you see, if the skeptics are going to converse with you, if they're going to ask you to give reasons for your view, then they should be prepared to give reasons for why they think their evidence should be accepted as much. Why do you believe it's a real objection? It isn't enough for someone to throw out the very first critical response they come across. No, as I've said before, anybody with, a fool with a login and an internet connection can post something online. What we want to do is we want to engage in discussions that are worthwhile. So, as Christians, let's be more prepared to engage others by exercising our minds with a bit of practice in thinking through the claims instead of just turning to Google ourselves. Sure, there are going to be times when you need the background or the facts. There will be experts who offer thoughts that you may not have thought about yourself. In fact, part of my ministry is to help Christians by providing some of that information. However, I don't want Christians to be lazy. A little bit of thought can answer more than you may expect, and a quick reply based on your own common sense can help foster more discussion than a copy and paste ever would. I'd like to wish you and yours a very happy and joyous Easter celebration. He has risen indeed. This is Lenny Esposito with Come Reason Ministries. Thank you for watching this Come Reason video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more videos like these, consider subscribing to our Come Reason YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button. And you can follow us on social media. Lastly, if you'd like to help keep these kinds of videos free, consider providing a donation by clicking on the donation button beside me. Thank you.